Shalom. This is a summary of the portion Bamidbar, the very first portion of the book of Numbers, the book of Bamidbar, the fourth book in the Torah. It begins by saying you should take a census, actually Se'u, which means to lift up the heads of Israel. And the very first interesting comment about this is that after the experience of the crossing of the sea and the Ten Commandments, these are sort of mundane experiences and mundane laws. And one of the commentaries notes that really life is lived not in just the high moments of life, a bar mitzvah, a wedding, a birth, but actually in the day-to-day life, and to make that holy. And then the term used for counting the heads, Se'u, which means to lift up, and how the people should have, after a slave experience, they might have, of course, being demoralized, but they should raise themselves up. They're a holy people, and they should go forth into the world feeling a sense of self-assuredness because they're going to hopefully do God's bidding. The Torah wants us to count the children of Israel. Now, there are other places in the Torah which forbid exact counting one by one. And so today, too, we have this tradition of not counting people individually. We had the experience in Exodus of also accounting. So we try and count people not by numbers because we're so many numbers in our lives. Social security number and phone number and driver's license number. So for like counting for a minyan, we may use a bracha instead, which has 10 words, to know that there's 10 in a minyan. One of the commentaries says that the number of people counted, the fighting men counted in the Torah equals the number of letters in the Torah. And therefore, it's to say that if one letter is missing, if one person is missing, the people are sorely diminished. But it turns out that they think based on the word Aleph, they have 600,000 plus fighting men, which means 2.5 million people, which is a huge number to be supported by the desert. So many commentators think actually the word Aleph there means instead of 1,000, maybe a unit of 5 or 6, which would mean there'd be 60 units, probably 3,500 men, maybe 2,500 people or so, which would make it a much more logical and possible number. Then it tells us how to organize the people. The ark is always in the center. The tribes are arrayed around it. Judah was facing it and would be marching in Judah's direction, so Judah would be marching backwards. One of the traditions when you're leaving the ark is to walk backwards so you don't turn your back on the ark. And so Judah, which of course is the origin of Jews today, should always be facing forward to the Torah. And then it says that you march first by your degel, then by the otod of your Beit Avot, and then towards the Ohel Moed. And so that tells us that we find our identity in life in 3 ways: our own degel, our own personal identity, and then that of our ancestral home, the otod of Beit Avot, our family, and finally the Ohel Moed, which represents religion and the community. Those are the 3 ways that we most identify ourselves. The last verse of the Parsha says that one of the groups of Levites responsible for the sanctuary should not look into the sanctuary lest they die. And one of the commentaries says it's not a physical death but a spiritual death. That if you become too routine and too normalized about sacred objects, possibly that you'll lose your spiritual capacity. And so you have to aspire always to see things in a holy manner. So those are some of the basic ideas and summary of the wonderful aspects of Parsha Bamidbar, the first portion of the book of Numbers.